And since the majority of people throughout time have not been convinced of post-mill, then why didn't, if all those verses about destroying the end of the world only meant to the Jewish system, if the Holy Spirit inspired the apostles, couldn't he have foreseen all the huge confusion that was going to come by people thinking, oh, that's talking about the end of the world? Why didn't the Holy Spirit, who could know from the beginning, from the end, go like, hey guys, don't all get confused thinking I'm talking about the end of the world. I'm only talking about the end of the Jewish system. 3 reasons why I don't think post-mill is true. 1, if the people back then who knew the apostles, who wrote all the prophecies we're looking at, if they didn't then go, oh, it's all fulfilled, it's all a wrap, the worst is over, it's only getting better from here on out, from what we can gather from what they wrote, if that wasn't their view and they knew the writers, if they didn't go, oh, after 80, 70, whatever, it's all a wrap, it's then hard to think that view is correct. If they, who lived during those time periods, knew the people who wrote it, so even though your favorite YouTube person or a theologian goes, oh, I read ancient Greek, I'm Josephus, if you forget all that stuff, you just go, the people who knew the apostles, if they didn't go, hey, this is all fulfilled, hey, from here on in, it's only going to get better. We're only going to convince the whole world. It's hard to accept post-mill. 2, why post-mill might be attractive because it explains Jesus saying, hey, in this generation, it's all going down. And it explains the Great Commission, that go convince the nations to believe everything I said. There are a lot of verses and a lot of the Bible then, the New Testament, make no sense. Or you'd have to go, oh, so much of the Bible only really existed for like 5-year time period, and for the rest, it means nothing. Like everything about like, oh, false teachers get worse and worse. In the end, love will grow cold. Peter talking about you're like strangers or pilgrims in this world. Jesus saying, the road is narrow, few find it. Many are going to say to me, Lord, Lord, and I'll say, away from me, I don't know you. If Jesus comes back and everyone, or the majority of the world's a Christian, who's he going to be saying, away from me, I don't know you to? Or how could the road be narrow when everyone's looking up, can't wait to see him? In 2 Thessalonians, it looks like, and Revelation 19, where it looks like those are verses talking about Jesus coming back to earth, destroying the beast or the man of lawlessness. It's very hard to go, oh, everyone is convinced of Jesus and is obeying him if he's coming back, ticked off. So all the verses about like, oh, bad teachers go from bad to worse would make no sense if more and more of the world is becoming Bible believing and obeying everything that Jesus taught. The road being narrow, if you find it, would make no sense if everyone out on the road or street was looking up, can't wait for Jesus to come back. And you would go like, oh, well, those verses only applied for like 5 years, from whenever Paul, or they wrote it from like 60 to 70 AD, maybe 10 years. Oh, well, bad teachers only go bad from 40 AD to 70 AD, but then ever since then, they only get really good. Or that's all that it was. Like, oh, things were only really bad from the time Jesus died to 70 AD. Why wasn't there like a final book or lesson and said like, okay, it's all a wrap. Yeah, it was really bad from 33 AD to 70 AD, but now all the stuff about false teachers, the road being narrow, forget all that. Now the road's only going to get more and more wide as more and more people are going to come to Christ. There will be no more false teachers. We're going to root them all out. From now on, all our teachers are going to be great and wonderful and more rooted in truths, and we're going to discover stuff that even the apostles didn't figure out, and and the only doctrines being taught are going to be right and great. And when Jesus comes back, the world's basically all going to be out on the street looking up, can't wait to see him. And since the majority of people throughout time have not been convinced of post-mill, then why didn't, if all those verses about destroying the end of the world only meant to the Jewish system, if the Holy Spirit inspired the apostles, couldn't he have foreseen all the huge confusion that was going to come by people thinking, oh, that's talking about the end of the world? Why didn't the Holy Spirit, who could know from the beginning, from the end, go like, hey guys, don't all get confused thinking I'm talking about the end of the world. I'm only talking about the end of the Jewish system. It seems that if the Holy Spirit is wise and omniscient, knows the beginning from the end, would have put in more clear anchoring verses to go, don't get confused thinking I'm talking about like the end of the world. I'm only talking about like the end of the Jewish system. But since the majority of people aren't convinced of post-mill still 2,000 years later, it's hard to think that a good God wouldn't have made sure that people didn't get so confused. Third and final reason why it's hard to believe in post-mill, or why I find it hard to believe in post-mill, is if you look at the world around you and you go, so few people read the Bible daily. The biggest churches aren't the ones who are most rooted in the Bible, but only use the Bible as lip service. The message from the Bible is going around for 2,000 years. You go, okay, well, where's your shining city? Where's the best example of people living this stuff out are? You go, what, a handful of people, maybe, in Moscow, Idaho? You go, that's the, and you look at the depravity worldwide, even in Christian nations, or nations that were once more Christian, now don't want nothing to do with it. It's hard to see where the, where I think it's a much easier to go like, oh, well, if it is getting closer to the end and teachers do get worse, people are more lovers of selves, that explains a lot more of what you see day to day than this post-mill, more people are becoming more and more hardcore Christian. I think the opposite is true, that if you get outside of your little Christian bubble, the explanation that the world is getting worse, people are becoming more lovers of the self. People call what's good bad and what's bad good. That seems to explain the world around us a lot more than the post-mill.